Divinity is living the truest expression of yourself at any given moment. And when you start an online business, this can be really hard because you're becoming a new person. You are having to step into a different set of shoes that you've never worn before, and it can be really, really jarring when you're becoming a new person and the people around you still see you as the person that you were before. And as you're going through the process of discovering the new version of yourself and all of these like up levels, because entrepreneurship is the biggest form of personal development you'll ever have, you are going through a whole new like self-care regimen. You're gonna have to learn a whole new idea around how you self-soothe, how you self-heal, how you look after yourself as you go through this whole new journey. And this is one of the things that not many people talk about when you're starting a business. So let's get into it. So one of the big things that I always find when somebody is starting a new business, they go through all the practical things. They think about, you know, what offer they want to sell, or what client they want to work with, or what problem they want to solve. They think about how much they want to charge, how they're going to take payment. They think about all of the practicalities. And if you're sitting here nodding going, yep, I've thought about all of those things, brilliant. But the thing that a lot of people don't think about is how they're going to deal with their inner demons, how they're going to deal with the self-sabotaging thoughts, how they're going to deal with the procrastination, how they're going to deal with themselves when they're not showing up as their best self. And realistically, when you're in business, you're going to be triggering your nervous system much more than when you're working a job. And it's like you show up, you do your thing, you get paid regardless of, regardless of anything. When you run a business, it doesn't work like that. You can show up, give everything you've got, and still not get a result. And you've got to be able to detach that result from your own self-worth, from your own being as a person. Because if you cannot detach those two things, you're not going to be successful in business. And this is something that is really, really important. It is so easy to talk down to yourself, to be mean to yourself, to call yourself out and say, oh, nobody wants to buy from me, I'll never be able to do this, I'll never have success. It's way harder to actually step into that power and that divinity and say, actually, I am capable. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as I've gone through this journey of divinity is the lesson of being able to go again. So we don't often have to problem solve and go again in pretty much any area of our life. And once you become an entrepreneur, it's something that you have to do all of the time. You put out a post, it gets no engagement, you have to go again. You put out an offer, it makes no sales, you have to go again. You work with a client and it doesn't quite go as you hoped it would, you have to go again. You can't be an entrepreneur, run your own business, and then shy away from these things, shy away from the actions that you have to take. So it's a really important skill that you have to learn as an entrepreneur, to actually be able to step into this place of knowing who you are, knowing what you've got to heal, knowing what your negative thoughts and patterns are, and being able to be kind to yourself as you go through this process. And it's really interesting because I've spoken about this before on the channel. When I first started my business, I landed a really big contract right off the bat, and by the time I told people that I'd started my own business, I already had a massive amount of money coming in. And it made that transition so easy, because whenever anybody would say, oh, it's going to be so hard, you're not going to be able to do it, maybe you should just get a job, I could go, oh, well, no, I'm 2 weeks in, I've already made 10K, and I have another massive contract lined up. And it was so easy for me to be so confident and get behind myself and be like, of course I can do this. And, you know, everything was fine. However, that's not always the case. You know, I've had programs that I've put out or launches that I've done where I've not sold any places. I've put something out, it's been the wrong timing, it's been the wrong product, it's gone into the wrong market. Like, there's so many reasons why it didn't work. And it's so important that you can balance those conversations, and rather than saying it didn't work because of me, it didn't work because, you know, I am not worthy of those sales, or I am not able to help people, or I am, you know, whatever the line is you're telling yourself, you have to be able to switch that up. Now, one of the big things, like the big conversations that I have with my clients, whether one-to-one or in my programs, is always being able to track your negative thoughts, being able to catch them and stop them as quickly as possible. Because if you can track, catch and stop, you're going to have so much more success than if you let your negative thoughts just spiral you for weeks, months. You know, sometimes people take years to get back on track with what they wanted to do. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to get back on track really quickly. Now, I'm not saying you're never going to have a moment of feeling down. I'm not saying you're never going to have a moment where you're questioning it all. I'm not saying that you're never going to have a hard day as an entrepreneur, because realistically, you are. But what I am saying is you should be able to contain and work through those feelings. So if something doesn't work, you can say, okay, it didn't work. What am I going to do differently? Let's look at this logically. And then, how did this make me feel? And let's process through those feelings and give our nervous system some new information. Because your nervous system is going to be massively led off the information that it's got and the information that we feed it. So, for instance, if I put out an offer and I don't make any sales, my ego might be saying, well, of course you didn't make sales, you're not good enough for this, you can't help people, you know, nobody wants to buy from you, nobody trusts you. And I can do one of two things in those moments. I can fuel those conversations and look for evidence that supports those conversations, or I can step over to the other side and I can look for evidence that disproves those conversations. And all of that evidence exists. It just depends what we focus on. So it's a really important thing for you to sit back and think, where do I want to put my focus when something doesn't go to plan? So for me, I will always look at, okay, what could I have done differently? Because I absolutely believe that there's always a learning, there's always something we can do. So maybe the sales page wasn't written very well, maybe the offer was, you know, put in front of the wrong audience, maybe I hadn't spoken about it enough and posted about it enough and shared about it enough. Maybe it was just the wrong type of offer. Maybe everyone is looking for something live and I'm putting out something that's recorded. Like, there's so many reasons. But what I'll do is I'll then go and I'll look for evidence that says I can actually help people. So I'll go and look at my one-to-one clients that I'm working with currently and look at the results that they're getting, look at the conversations that we're having. I'll dip into the group program and look at the results that people are getting and actually remind myself that it doesn't matter if this one thing didn't work in isolation, it doesn't mean that I am not working as a whole. Now, if you don't have results already to dip into, then you need to be able to dip into your own personal experience. So when I was first going through this process and moving my whole business online, I'd never sold anything online before, but I was pulling on the fact that I had successfully run my own business in the real world. I had successfully worked in an industry where I did training for a living. I had successfully walked this journey of starting a business, working in strategy, you know, helping people work in this way. And if you can tap into evidence, it's going to calm down your nervous system so much. So whatever the story is that you're telling yourself, you need to be able to form evidence in the positive rather than just backing up the negative story that you're telling yourself. And this is one of the biggest things when it comes to healing, is being able to actually identify the stories that you're telling yourself. So the easiest way to go about this is to have a little notebook or a piece of paper that's on your desk, or in your handbag, or with you wherever you go. You can use a notes app on your phone, whatever works for you. And when you are, whether it is in conversation with people or a situation happens, what you want to start to do is jot down the thoughts that come into your mind. So somebody doesn't purchase, they say no. What are the thoughts that come to your mind? And even as you're watching this video, grab a piece of paper, and anything that comes up for you now, start writing it down. So, you're on a discovery call, you're on a client call, a sales call, and the person says, no, I don't think your offer's for me. What does that bring up for you? What thoughts come up in your mind? Somebody DMs you and says that they're interested in an offer, you send them the offer, and then they just ghost you, and you hear nothing from them, and they don't reply to you, and you can't get hold of them. What does that bring up for you? You have people who join your offer and they don't do the work. They don't do the work, they're not getting the results, they're not showing up as they're supposed to. What does that bring up for you? You put out a post on social media and you get absolute crickets. No likes, no comments, no engagement. What does that say? Or you put out a post on social media and you get negative comments. Somebody says something mean to you. What does that do for you? How does that make you feel? And as each of these different situations happen in life, you've just got to think about, what is the story that you're telling yourself? What is the narrative that's coming up? Now, when you start mapping your narrative, you might find that sometimes your narrative is positive, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's quite neutral. But what you also might find is that positive situations can actually cause negative thoughts. So I had a client say to me a little while ago, I put out my group program, I'm so excited about it, I don't think I'm going to make any sales. So we unpacked that and it was absolutely fine, and then she messaged me and she said, I've made a sale and now I'm absolutely freaking out. So I said to her, why? Making a sale is incredible, that's what you wanted, so what is the problem? And she said, what if nobody else buys? What if it's only one person and then I have to deliver this whole program for one person? She was like, I didn't even think about that when I put out a group program. And so we had to go through and unpack, why does she think nobody else is going to buy? What story is she telling herself? And if this person did end up just being one client and they did it one-to-one, would that client be upset? Probably not. They get individual attention. Would it change the way that they showed up and delivered the program? Probably not. So you have to sort of unpack, even positive situations can bring up negative thoughts. And it's really important that you start to unpack these and you start to think about, how can we change these thoughts for new, better thoughts? So if you've got a negative thought, how can you shift that to something that is more aligned with the type of person that you want to be, aligned with the healing that you want to do, aligned with the outcome that you want to live? And you start to tell yourself a better story, because this process is all about being the most honest version of yourself all of the time, being the most authentic version of yourself all of the time. And actually, the thoughts that you're having, the negative thoughts, they are separating you. They are your ego separating you from who you are truly here to be. So if you've decided to run a business and you've been called to help a group of people and fix a particular problem, that is absolutely your purpose. But your ego can sometimes be really, really scared to actually step into that place. to actually say, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing, because your ego is obviously working from fear. It's working from a fight or flight response of keeping you safe, keeping you alive. And realistically, when you start a business, you throw all of that safety out of the window and put yourself on display doing a whole bunch of things you've never done before. So it's really important that actually we have a practice where we can pull those thoughts in and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, and actually this is why this is beneficial or not beneficial to me. And this is how I'm gonna adapt that thought to be more beneficial in the long run. You can also use things like meditation. You can also use like different books, and you can like dive into podcasts and read or listen to audiobooks around particular topics that you're specifically struggling with. There's so many ways that you can start to shift your belief or shift your thought process. But the really important thing is that you have to be aware of those thoughts. You can't change anything about your reality if you're not aware of the stories that you're telling yourself. So self-awareness is the first step on this path to divinity, on this path back to the true essence of who you are. And most people spend so much time like separate from who they are. Separate in, you know, being the person at work, being the friend, being the daughter, being, you know, the mother or the sister or the wife. Instead of actually being able to step away from that and just be you, just exist as you are. And that is really what I want you to achieve as you go through this process. It's to think about actually, what is the most truthful version of me? Who am I at the core? What are my core beliefs? What are my values? And then how do I lean into those more every single day to become a stronger, more independent, more truthful version of myself? And if you can do that, running your business is going to be so much easier. So that's what I want to leave you with today. Get a piece of paper, write down what's come up for you, what your thoughts are, track yourself for like a week as you go through this process, and start to really pay attention to what it is that you need to shift, what it is you need to do and how you need to show up. And I promise you, magic will start to happen. Okay, and I'll see you guys next week so that we can dive into looking at creating offers that sell with ease, because isn't that what we all want in our businesses? See you next week.